Well, hey, everybody, welcome to our discussion. I've got Beth Fournier here with me, and I am Kurt Holmgren, and we're going to talk about a lot of things about foster care and kind of a vision Beth has for that. So we look forward to hearing about that as we go on. So we'll get right into it, all right? So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in foster care and your family and kind of how your family is embracing that.
Yeah, so growing up, I was very close with my aunt, and she was a foster mom. And it was me and my sister growing up, but I loved being around kids and babies. And so during summertime and any school vacation, I would spend as much time as I could at my aunt's house because there was always lots of kids around. And so that was when I was first exposed to the system and to what foster care was kind of all about. And
How old were you then?
Young, probably I would say between like 10 and 12 was when it really kind of started on my heart. That's actually how I became an occupational therapist as well. One of the kiddos that came into my aunt's home had cerebral palsy, and so an OT came into the home and worked with him. And so I was just exposed to kind of really what my heart path was at a young age, both in being a mom and as well as my career and as well as foster parenting. So I do feel very blessed that at a young age I was pretty confident about what God had for me and was able to kind of set those things into motion even as a young teen.
Right, and you're going to tell us a little bit about what foster care is going on in your family. Yeah. How are your kids embracing that?
Oh my gosh, my kids are also exactly have had that same sort of, I don't know, motion put on them by God. It's been very evident that He's working in their lives as well. To back up a little bit, I will say that when Josh and I first got married, it was something we had talked about. We knew we wanted to have kids and eventually become foster parents. We thought maybe when our kids were grown, we got married quite young. We had Emmy and Eli quite young. And so we thought boy, girl, we'll be done and that'll be our family. And then when our kids are grown and moved out, that maybe we could enter the foster care community at that point. But God had other plans for us. When in 2017 we purchased a new home, and it was just a blessing to us to be able to move and buy a bigger home at that time. And the previous owners were actually foster parents, so the entire house was set up, ready to go, multiple bedrooms, everything up to code. And that was kind of when we started just getting confirmation after confirmation from God that it was time for us to set that in motion. And we became licensed in 2018. And they say that it usually takes like 6 months or more to become fully licensed. And every single thing like fell into place. It was very clear that this was what we were supposed to do and the path that God had set for us. We welcomed Logan in May of 2018, and we have since adopted him. And we've had a couple of kids in and out of our home. But then we also welcomed Rumi in 2022, and we just recently set off our fingerprints to get our adoption date next month for her. So
outstanding. So would you call those unsuccessful foster parents because you started adopting them all?
We have heard the term foster failure, we one thing I will say is that we really have tried hard to what we call love with an open hand, and love kids like they're our own for as long as they are our own. We have had to say goodbye a couple times, but also recognizing that the kids that we gave birth to aren't our own either, and just handing it all over to God and whatever He has for us, being open to that and leaning into Him in that. But also, we've been so blessed. We can't look at the situation and not recognize that it's a gift.
So is there a mixture of grief and joy when they move out of your house? You're glad they have a place to go.
Yeah.
But you still have to miss them.
Yeah. I would say that there's a lot of, we say living in the and too, like you're joyful and you're sad. You're relieved and you're grieving, and so I feel like so much of following Jesus and being a parent is living in that tension of this and this
Right.
at the same time. And I think foster care in general is definitely that, where you don't want the kids to even have to be in this situation, but you're happy you can step into it.
Right.
So,
And ultimately, you're walking in obedience with what Jesus has for you. And so that's where you know that even if times get hard, that's the thing that you have to do.
yeah, we definitely know that the system is not for everyone. Not everyone is called into this ministry, but everyone can do something.
Yeah.
So kind of like, how can people fit into this with not necessarily becoming foster parents, but there are we've just had an amazing village come alongside us, and whether it's babysitting or dropping off diapers or just loving us, like you don't necessarily have to become a foster parent to get involved.
And so as you mentioning those things, nobody should have the impression that foster care is going to be a problem-free ride.
No, it's quite the opposite, in fact.
What kind of challenges do you have to overcome through that?
It's a broken world we live in, and it's a broken system. It's hard. These kids should never have to experience the things that they have, and these families should never have to experience the things they have. And stepping into that messy situation comes with a lot of hard things, like what your own biological children experience, what you experience, and kind of that secondary trauma piece. And then also trusting that what's best for the kids is going to happen, trusting the judges, trusting the caseworkers, and opening your home to a variety of different people coming in, whether it's therapists or caseworkers or all of that, like opening yourself up for that vulnerability, but also knowing that you're doing everything you can to provide the best possible life for a child.
Did you deliberately try to surround yourself with a good support network, or did that just end up happening for you?
I think it happened naturally for us. We have amazing family and friends and church family, and so it did happen naturally, but I honestly don't know how people can do it without the support system. I really, there's a lot to it, and so it's challenging when you don't have the community behind you praying, showing up, and you feel like people are in it with you.
What's the current situation in the state regarding foster kids? There's a big queue of kids waiting to find foster parents?
Children entering foster care it's very variable, I'd say, for lack of a better term. Like it comes in ebbs and flows, and in different communities, there's more need than others. As most people are aware, the drug crisis, particularly in Maine, is serious, and it's really affecting parents' ability to care for kids appropriately. And sometimes kids can come into care temporarily until parents can get on their feet or get the help that they need. And so it's significant. There's a good chunk of kids that are entering foster care even temporarily. And there's a serious lack of foster homes. A lot of foster homes are either full, or they've adopted and they've closed, or there's been some hard experiences. So a lot of families have decided to be done. And so I think the need outweighs the resource at this point. And particularly for big sibling groups, or kiddos with special needs or significant trauma that have behaviors, are very challenging to find a home placement that's a good fit for them.
Right. You can't even, as you mentioned, you can't really overstate the drug issue in this, because as we have ministries that go out in the streets all the time, I find moms that their kids are just distributed all over the place. They're sad because of it, and even in that sort of thing, what I've found with you and Josh, your husband, what was kind of impressive is the way you've tried to stay connected with the birth parents. Can you talk about that a minute?
Yeah, we actually have a really good relationship with both of our children's birth parents. And we are able to do visits when it's appropriate, and send pictures and keep that connection. And our kids know that they're adopted or will be adopted. They know who their birth parents are, and they recognize that that's just a part of their story. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be hidden. They know, and they can appreciate their birth parents for who they are, and love us at the same time. It doesn't need to be a them versus us or this or that. It can be, again, that tension in between. I can love both my moms.
Yeah. So as much as you can nutshell this,
Yes.
What kind of process does one go through to be a foster parent?
So it's all in the state of Maine. You're all licensed through the state. And so you would go through an initial information meeting, and then a very large packet of information to be filled out, background checks, fingerprints, home study where they come into the home to meet you and get to know you, and then also interviewing a network of your people to make sure that you're a safe person to become a foster parent, but then also looking at your home and making sure it's an environment conducive to adding more children to, size of the windows, things like that. And just really making, then as well as like a long training process. I think it used to be like a 6 or 8 week training course as well. And then, so it's just multiple steps. And then at the end of it, you will like get licensed for a certain number of children or space or whatever. And then every 2 years you go through a similar renewal process. So it's definitely, it's a commitment.
Yes,
it's not something you would take lightly, for sure.
Nice.
Which to be expected, because you don't want to hand over kiddos to families that
And it's
they haven't gone through that.
but you would say it's worthwhile.
It is.
From that.
It is.
Yeah. I was Josh was mentioning kind of an anecdotal piece of your first adopted child. Logan had a name for you recently that he was telling us.
He did. Big Mama?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So you can
That's Logan's. He's a character. He comes up with. He knows what will make you laugh.
Yes.
And so.
But you had to correct him on that.
Yeah, that wasn't really one I was gonna let fly, but it was worth the effort. I appreciated the humor.
So, Beth, what are some of the choke points that are creating problems in the foster care system?
So I don't know that it would be the biggest problem, but a problem that I experienced, and that I think something that God's put on my heart to be able to address would just be community support. So often I hear people say, I'd love to help, but I don't know how. Or caseworkers, like, I really need this for a family, but I don't know who I can ask, kind of. And like bridging that gap between resources and what people want to give and what they want to be able to do, and connecting them with the needs.
Yep.
So a lot of times I think we don't realize that kiddos coming into foster care frequently will go with what they call kinship placements. So either close families or friends that are not planning on taking kids. They were not looking to be licensed. They were not looking to become a foster parent. So they have a kiddo dropped off at their door very unexpectedly, and don't have the crib ready, the car seat, the items that they would need to raise a kiddo, or the funds to be able to do it. And then there's also, because they're not licensed, they don't necessarily have some of that, the financial support, at least initially, that a foster family would. So they are frequently draining their savings, or sometimes having to say no, like, I'm sorry, I can't afford to raise a kid right now, where we know that it's best for kids to be with family or people they're familiar with whenever possible. So that was something I in 2020, when we were home during COVID, I actually saw this, it was a micro special about this program that's happening down south. And I was just enamored. I was like, I need to do this. It was kind of when I was aware that there were these like transition type houses for kids coming into foster care or awaiting placement, where they could go and have a comfortable place to land, but then also receive all the supplies they needed, so that bio families and foster families were picking up kids and they didn't have to run to Walmart with a kiddo who quite possibly was experiencing.
So it's kind of a transition place.
Yes, yeah.
And how long would they typically be there?
I think it totally depends on how long it takes for them to find the right placement, which some kids it could be a couple hours and some kids it could be days or weeks.
And if not from this place you were watching on your micro documentary,
Yes.
Where would they be if they didn't have something like that?
Waiting in the DHS offices or hotels.
Okay.
Which is something that is very real, that is currently happening. We have kiddos that will come into care, and while the caseworkers are in charge of caring for them, so what frequently happens is a caseworker will go into a home, and the team decides that the child needs to be removed from the home, and they will take them back to the office while they finish up the paperwork, and they're getting the judge to sign off and everything in place. And then they're also simultaneously looking for a place for that child to go. So they'll explore all family members that they can, get in touch with everybody, see if there's any options there. And then if not, then it goes on to foster families, and they're calling foster families. And so like for Logan, we got a call at noon and he was in my arms 3 hours later. So it happens very quickly, but also that's 3 hours. So if he was not at the hospital, he would have been at the office with the caseworker trying to care for him, as well as figure out all these moving pieces as well. So that's exactly. It was an area, I don't know that it's the biggest need in foster care, but it's an area that I was like, that's something I can help with. That's something I can bridge what I see as a gap, what I see as a need with my skill set and my community that we've been a part of, that we can help with this.
So this is what began as Nanna's house.
Yes.
Could you tell us why that name?
Yeah.
But then how you began putting that together, where you stand today.
So I will say as much as I felt my heart break and a desire to do this, I was also terrified, and still am, to be honest. I knew that this is what I was being called to, but I'm a planner. I like to have all the ducks in a row, and I like to see the end result and how it'll all work out before I'm willing to take that step. And that's something that I've struggled with my whole life, is that like just wild faith in God and trust. Like, I called you to this, I'm not going to leave you here to drown, kind of thing. And I will say that is one. So I had mentioned this desire to do this, and one couple that was incredibly encouraging and actually was like, you need to do this, was the Fertonis, Sam and Norma Fertoni. So almost every Sunday we'd come to church and they'd be like, okay, so you ready to start? And I'm like, oh, no, I can't yet. Like, and then and eventually it was like to the point where it was very clear that this is what God had for me, and that I had a team of people behind me that were going to help me do all the things that I didn't know how to do, or support me in a way and believe in me in a way I didn't believe in myself. And so just moment after moment, it just came to fruition. We became a 501c3 in November of 2022, reached out to DHS, and they said, thanks, but no thanks. And we're like, oh, okay. So
when you reached out to them, what did you pitch to them?
So similar. So the model of like, we would like to have a home style environment where kids can come, when they're transitioning in between foster placements or before they're placed into foster care, so that they're not waiting in the DHS office or in hotels. And we could provide supplies, and they were like, wow, that's really nice, but we don't really need that.
So you weren't even asking them for anything. You were just asking for cooperation if this should be there.
Yeah, we didn't want to get to a point where we purchased a home and then they were like, we're never going to use that. So, and looking back, I can see how God was working all of this out, and how it wasn't the right time, and we needed to get involved and make the connections and get our feet planted.
Yeah.
And so we just started small. We have a storage unit out under the overhang. I have a huge shed at my house full of things that people have donated. And we just restocked that. I actually just walking in today, a caseworker was in there grabbing stuff.
Right. So when you say the overhang, for
Yes.
folks who are listening from the church, they can walk out that side door and see the Nana's house shed there.
Yes.
Yes.
So the caseworkers have 24-hour access to take whatever they need. We have clothes, diapers, wipes, formula, toys, winter jackets.
And they all get the code for the lock.
Yep. And they have
my.
my number is there too. So if anyone's like, I don't know how to get in, I mean, the front desk is great too at helping, but I can get them in at any
So
time as well.
how's that working out?
It's actually working really well. And the more we do it and the more we deliver into like, oh, I need this. Okay, we can get that.
Yeah.
Yesterday, a caseworker texted me and was like, I can't find what I'm looking for in the shed. And I'm like, okay, let me put in a Target order. And she ran over and picked it up and got what the child needed.
So how does that work? The accumulation of the goods to go in the shed.
Me.
Yeah, okay.
I do have people that I'm like, hey, can you help me with this? Working full time and then having the 4 kids, it's tricky sometimes. But a lot of times I'll send, Josh down with them like, hey, put this in the shed for me or whatnot. But
So where do you get the funding for that?
it's all been donations.
Okay.
So either financial donations that we have that I can tap into and purchase what we need, or we have an Amazon wish list.
Okay.
And so I'll put items there, particularly like around Christmas time. I was just like, we have a couple families that need support, and I'd put the items that they were looking for. Right now, we have a kiddo who is looking for softball gear to be able to play softball. And so we put the items she wanted up on our Amazon wish list, and they just come directly to me, and then I can distribute to whoever's in need.
So that system has been working.
Yes.
And you've just been sort of waiting to get, because you need participation to be able to go into this home you're talking about.
Yep.
So what transpired there?
Yeah, so we have just been in gradual but continual conversation with DHS and like kind of what are the barriers? What would be helpful for you? How can we partner? And so we've had some amazing conversations over the last couple months, and just last week we were given the green light to go ahead and really start fundraising and really move forward with purchasing or building a home.
So here's where the rubber meets the road,
Yes.
right? So talk about the location. And
Yeah, so we would love it to be close to a DHS office,
Yeah.
particularly the Portland one, because that's where we have the most communication and collaboration. But I envision this going to wherever it's needed. So eventually I know there are some serious needs in the Lewiston office and in the Augusta office as well.
And so this is what brings you here while
Yeah.
we're sitting talking, is that we have our Easter offering that we give away each year. And so we want to do that for Nana's house, and which is great. So we look forward to seeing what God does with that. So our entire offering on Easter Sunday is going to be given to Nana's house for you and your team to put in the right place. Ideally, down payment type thing. Is that what it would be for
That's the goal. Yeah, that's our hope.
And what would the in your picture? Granted, your what would that look like? That facility.
A home style environment, similar to what just a soft place to land, and that's why we picked Nana's house. So Nanna is my mom.
Okay.
To my mom and dad are grandparents to whoever walks through the door. It's never been a need to be biologically related. You walk through the door, you're Nana's. And
So we see where this came from.
yes, this is where it came from. And the one thing I appreciate about my parents is you don't have to pack a diaper bag to go to my parents' house. They have everything you need.
That's good.
That is good.
If I might need
So, and kids don't leave without a full belly and a full heart. And that's our hope for Nana's house is that kids can come dirty and tired and broken, and they can feel the love of the community, and they can leave with clothes on their back and food in their belly and know that there is a community of people that are cheering them on. And
So how does that look? So little George just got removed from his bad situation, and he's going to go to Nana's house. Who's is it the DHHS person that's going to stay with them then there?
Yeah, so the caseworker would always maintain supervision over the child. Our goal eventually would be to have a team of volunteers that could be kind of on call or present to play with the child or to help clean them up or help them pick out the clothes that they want to take with them while the caseworker's busy doing the job. But we also want to make it as low barrier as possible. So if that was a barrier for DHS, like we also want to protect privacy and confidentiality. And so those are some of the details that we would have to work out over time of like how can we best support them,
Right.
But also make it practical and safe for the child.
So as you bring this up, there's probably quite the spectrum that you don't even aware of opportunities for people in the church to help get involved with this. Because I was just thinking about if you've got a home, there's upkeep on that, right? That has to happen. So somebody has to do that, mow the lawn, fix a pipe,
Cleaning,
vacuum, whatever that would be. So that's an opportunity. Do you have, and I know you probably don't, maybe you don't even want to answer this, scope of about how much you'd have to get to finish this place off? Any guesses?
No.
No,
That's exactly why I have the team around me, because those are things that I will say that I have the heart and the drive for it, but not the
But at least
head
what we're
knowledge
looking at here for our Easter offering could be a solid down payment that would help you get going.
Yeah,
and then if there was a mortgage just going on, and people could come along and just pay that off as that goes on.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Let me see, what else do we have here? How would we be praying for this to move forward? What are the next steps that you need to have happen?
Just continued partnership with DHS, funding, and the right people to just step in and say, yep, I'm here, let's do this kind of thing, and that we can just continue to move forward and show the entire system a God that is behind this, and how it's not just about the kids. It's not just about foster parents. It's about the entire family system and caseworkers. And one thing that caseworkers really struggle with is job satisfaction, for lack of a better word.
A lot of turnover,
A lot of turnover. It's a hard job. They're asked to do a lot with not a lot, and they're dealing with very difficult situations and putting themselves in hard spots. And if we can come alongside them as a community and show them that we're behind them and that we want to help and we want to support, and if we can make just even one day a little bit easier for them and the kids, then hopefully they can stay in their positions long enough, and it can help with overall outcomes for the kids.
Makes the whole system more effective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so not just looking at how this affects the kids, but also the entire family system and the entire caseworker population as well.
Especially what will happen as people see the church come around a thing like this. Jesus will be glorified in that for sure as that happens.
I think that's my biggest prayer, is that that this never is about me or about Nanna's house, that it's about pointing everyone back to Jesus and how he can do all of this easily, but how much better it is when we get into it and step into his calling for us, and how he can be glorified in it, but also how we can be blessed by being able to be a part of it as well.
Well, great. I look forward to seeing what God does with this.
Thank you.
If people want more information, want to contact you, want to help, anything, how will they get in touch?
So our website is nannashouse.me. I'm sure it will be linked around. And my email is attached to that. You can come find me and chat. Our Amazon wish list is also there, and anything that's ordered through that gets shipped directly to me. And financial donations can be done through there too.
And you'll be here at the church because you're not going anywhere.
No,
right.
I'm not.
Well, Beth, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We look forward to seeing what God's going to do.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt.
Yeah.